This is Viewpoint, a weekly public affairs presentation of Montpelier Broadcasting. Viewpoint features conversations with community leaders. Now, here's the host of Viewpoint, Lynne Goodson.
Welcome to Viewpoint, a spotlight on community leaders and organizations making a difference. I'm Lynne Goodson, your host, and on this edition of Viewpoint, my guest is Dan Osman. He's the director for Camp Daybreak. Welcome, Dan.
Thanks for having me.
Where's Camp Daybreak located?
Camp Daybreak is out of Goodson, Vermont. We actually are a one-week program of the Vermont Association for Mental Health and Addiction Recovery, and we rent a campsite called Camp Thorpe in Goodson. It's a small mountain town outside of Brandon, Vermont. It's actually like this quintessential Vermont town. It has this very small general store. It's up in the mountains, gorgeous views. The camp is actually nestled between these two mountains, and so we get these great views. Sometimes we get double rainbows, all this wonderful Vermont scenes in nature. It's really quite nice.
So is Camp Daybreak an organization of itself, like a nonprofit organization?
It is a nonprofit with the Vermont Association for Mental Health. That's our umbrella organization. Also in the organization is Friends of Recovery Vermont and the Vermont Alcohol and Drug Information Clearinghouse. So we're kind of a wide range of programs dealing with mental health and addiction recovery.
So what's the connection between mental health and addiction recovery and a summer camp for kids?
Sure. Well, one of the things that we're focusing on now in the organization is merging the two worlds of mental health and addiction recovery. Recently, in October, we changed our name. We were the Vermont Association for Mental Health with these other programs that focused on addiction recovery, but it wasn't represented in our name. And so in October, we rolled out a new name, the Vermont Association for Mental Health and Addiction Recovery, really merging the two roles and worlds and bringing everyone together to talk about these two very important issues.
Who are the kids that are going to this camp?
Camp Daybreak serves 30 kids throughout Vermont with a range of social, emotional, and behavioral needs, and they're referred by school counselors, educators, families, and state agencies as well as mental health professionals.
And how old are these kids?
Ages 8 to 11.
Tell us about some of the programs that exist at the camp. What are the kids doing when they get there?
Sure. Well, one of the most important pieces of the program is the staff support ratio. Each kid is paired one-on-one with a high school or college age volunteer. So we have 30 kids and actually 50 staff that are there for the week with them. It's a residential camp, so we spend nights, days having fun, doing all sorts of different things. I myself actually started as a high school volunteer when I was a high schooler at Twinfield Union School in Marshfield, Vermont, and was 16, and 16 years later, I'm still there. It's a wonderful opportunity, not only for the kids, but for the volunteers to talk about mental health and to really build a community within your community and give back to someone in need.
Do you have all the volunteers that you need for this summer?
We do. It's a little bit later in the volunteer season, so we have all the volunteers and all the kids that we need. Actually, this year is a pretty remarkable year in terms of applications. We usually have 30 kids, and that's typically our number. Our wait list is pretty shallow. This year, we're happy to say that we have 30 kids who are coming to Camp Daybreak who have never been to Camp Daybreak before. And our waiting list is quite deep, including kids who haven't been to camp before, as well as kids who have been for several years. It's the first time in many years that that's happened.
Why do you think that's happened?
Actually, this is the first time we've ever had a full-time employee for Camp Daybreak. In 54 years of operation, the camp has always kind of worked toward completing the next session, fundraising, finding volunteers, finding kids, really working toward the summer session, not being able to plan for down the road and for long-term growth. But now we have this new employee in myself who is the full-time director of Camp Daybreak. And for me, it's been a wonderful opportunity to spend time building the program and giving back to a program that's really been great to me and has changed me a lot as a person.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that you've done a fair bit of outreach and it's worked.
Correct. Yes.
And as the director, now you have a number of kids who are essentially saying to you, we would like to come to camp and camp would be good for us. And Camp Daybreak has a specific mission related to mental health.
That's correct, yeah.
And so What do you think about that? How are you going to address the needs of these kids that aren't going to fit in the program?
Well, it's an excellent question. It's one of the things that we're focusing on a lot now is that, we have this need for kids who really need the program, and we don't have a spot for them this year. And for me, that's actually been really hard because what I'd love to do is be able to take everybody, but unfortunately, physically, we can't do that. We just don't have the space or the funding for that matter. So our hope is to be able to plan several sessions down the road. That certainly won't happen this year. It may not happen next year, but we're trying to build enough of a financial sustainability that we can do that down the road and create either more camp daybreaks or a bigger camp daybreak or some sort of variation on the model that we're using right now.
You are listening to Viewpoint on this edition of Viewpoint. My guest is Dan Osman. He's the director for Camp Daybreak. And Dan, let's talk a little bit more about the kids that are coming to the camp. You said that these kids are between the ages of 8 and 11, is that correct? And they are kids who have challenges. Can you tell us a little bit more about those challenges and what are they? What are the challenges? Where did they come from?
I've been using the term range of needs to describe the campers of Camp Daybreak because really we see a range of needs in our applicants. We see kids who are on the autism spectrum. We see kids who have PTSD from abuse. We see kids who are in foster care. We see kids who just need a little bit of extra social support in building relationships with their peers. The term range of needs really covers all of those things. For me, the wonderful part about Camp Daybreak is that relationship between the camper and the big sibling. These are campers who really, for whatever reason, need extra attention. And to have that one-on-one volunteer with them for the entire week of camp offers them that opportunity. And for the staff, the volunteers, it offers them an insight into this world of mental health. Kids who maybe not have all the support they need in their world. And they have an opportunity to really give back and do that for these kids. And these kids are wonderful, absolutely wonderful. I see so many kids come with literal and figurative baggage. Just hard home lives or, challenging past or, even having a hard time academically in school and the stigma around that. And to come into a camp setting where that's not what defines them, they're kids and they're able to have fun. It's summer camp, and they otherwise maybe wouldn't have that experience at another camp. There might be that stigma or might be those labels where at Camp Daybreak, we don't have that. We're just having fun together as a community.
What are the activities?
Oh, the activities. So many fun activities. Well, the day is filled with all kind of traditional camp activities. We have games, non-competitive new games specifically to kind of take that competitive atmosphere out of the scenario so that it doesn't affect behaviors down the road. And really is about collaboration with your peers rather than competition. As well, we've a pond and a pool and there's boating and fishing and all sorts of fun. And that's during the day. At night, we have theme nights. One of my favorite nights of camp, but also of the year itself, is Pirate Night. All the kids dress as pirates, and we go around. Arg, indeed. I'll maybe give you some of my pirate voice later if you'd like. But it's a lot of fun. The kids dress as pirates, and we have a pirate treasure hunt. I made up some pirate lore about actually one of the former directors who's now he's Long John Rowell. John Rowell is a special educator at Georgia Elementary. But also he's this pirate superhero now, essentially. We have a ton of fun. Along with Pirate Night, we have a superhero night where the kids do carnival games as superheroes. We have a talent show, all sorts of really fun things. The kids can really be themselves, have a great time. It's wonderful for everybody.
Can you give us an example of a non-competitive game that the kids love?
Yes. One of my favorite games is this game. But essentially what you do is you have an assortment of playground balls, all shapes and sizes, tennis balls, handheld, medium-sized balls, and then big old kickballs, right? And you very simply hang a bucket from a tree. And the goal is for the kids in the group, however large the group is, to get all the balls into the bucket using teamwork and trying to do it as fast as they possibly can. And it's a lot of fun because not only are the kids just having a good time. I mean, that sounds like a good time in itself, right? But they have to work together to accomplish this goal. And so rather than it being a game where they're pitted against each other, they really have to collaborate to have fun, but also to achieve a common goal. We have an assortment of games like that where, there aren't winners or losers. It's about building teamwork and collaborating with your peers. And ultimately, the kids have a great time.
You are listening to Viewpoint, a spotlight on community, leaders, and organizations making a difference. I'm Lynne Goodson, your host, and on this edition of Viewpoint, my guest is Dan Osman. He's the director for Camp Daybreak. You've been telling us that there are 30 kids who attend the camp, and there are 30 young people who come and serve as big sisters and big brothers. What about other staff people? Are there other staff people as well?
There are, in fact. We have a small leadership team, 10 professionals who are the only paid employees of Camp Daybreak. That includes myself, our kitchen manager, as well as each kid is separated into a family. So we have 3 families at Camp Daybreak with 10 kids in each family, and there are 10 siblings in each family as well. Each family is run by a consultant, which is a person on the leadership team who has mental health or education experience. Right now, we have a behavioral interventionist as a consultant. We have a licensed therapist in Massachusetts, as well as we have a high school chemistry teacher as one of our consultants. And so along with getting this supportive atmosphere where the kids are paired with a volunteer, there's also this rich mental health setting as well, where the volunteers can have training in mental health from these professionals. Additionally, we also have staff who are like our arts and crafts director and our waterfront director, people who are in charge of stations throughout camp. And really what's fun for me in my job is that I get to collaborate with all these wonderful, smart, creative people to build a support system for the kids that are there and build fun activities. And that's part of our goal throughout the year is to how to figure out how does camp exactly work for these kids and how can we build a supportive environment where they can really thrive.